Hello and welcome to Matchday Live. And if you haven't guessed already, by the Angel of the North, just behind me here, we are of course playing Newcastle today at St James's Park with kick-off at 12:30. And FG is already at the stadium at one of the highest points in the ground. Let's go over and see him.
Yes, thank you, Georgia. Here I am in the away section at St James's Park, right at the top, and this is where our fans will be watching the 12:30 kick-off between Newcastle and Manchester City. I'm going to be pitchside on Matchday Live. It's probably going to take me a while to get back down there, so let's head to the studio where Natalie is with Steve Howey and Nicky Weaver.
And will we see the real Phil Foden and the real Erling Haaland today? Well, one is in the starting 11 and one is on the bench, and I'll give you the team news in about 2 minutes. But welcome to Matchday Live. Thank you to FG there, and thank you to Georgia, although that was a much more close-up version of FG than I ever want to see again. Talking of Angels of the North, I have got two more in the studio with me today. Steve, I feel like you've come down and we've gone north.
Yeah, it was when I spoke to the powers that be, they were just. I actually thought I was going to go to the game, but they said no, it's down here. So I'm only too delighted to make the journey down. So
the City team and the City fans went north. You came south to us, and we're very pleased to have you. And for you, Nick, you came west.
Across
the country to get to us from Sheffield way.
Yeah.
Lovely to have you. You well?
Very well, thank you.
Well, excited for today?
Yeah, always excited. It's always a big game at St James's Park. Great atmosphere. Club that's had a massive transition in the last few years, so yeah, a lot of good players on show, and hopefully it's a good game and a City win.
How's it for you today? Obviously, both your former clubs facing each other.
A City win for me. I was there a while, but as I've said many times, I absolutely adored my time here. Lovely people. But this game has always been a really good game as well, especially at St James's. A lot of goals, very entertaining. Let's just hope we get the same again today.
We have had some incredible games. We really have at St James's Park. There's so many that immediately come to mind, and we're going to look at one later that you were both involved with as well. But all important now, the time is for the team news. So here is your Manchester City starting 11 for today's 12:30 kickoff. So you can see loads of changes from the team that beat Watford midweek. So in goal, he is back, it is Ederson. And then Kyle Walker is the captain. Akanji, Diaz, Vardiol, Lewis, Kovacic, Gundogan, Bernardo, Grealish and Haaland. So that is your starting 11. So Erling Haaland is in the starting 11, which will tell you that Phil Foden is on the bench today. So the substitute bench: Stefan Ortega, Scott Carson, John Stones, Jeremy Doku, Savio, Mateus Nunes, fresh off his goal midweek, Phil Foden and James McAtee. So that is the subs bench for today, and that is the starting 11. You can see the pictures there. City arriving at St James's Park. There is Ruben, there is Bernardo, and there is the genius himself. Pep Guardiola is at St James's Park. So loads and loads to talk about in that starting 11, gents. And obviously we've got to get on to Rodri in a minute. But before we get on to that and how City are going to survive the next year, cope the next year without him, Steve, what formation are we playing today?
Well, we were actually looking at it just before the game, before we came on air, sorry. I think it's going to be a 4-4-1-1, or you just don't know. I mean, in all fairness, with Pep, one of the good things about Pep, when you do this, and even if you're not doing this, and you look at his starting the team, you don't know where everybody's going to play it. And not only that, they might start off in some kind of formation, but they're constantly interchanging. So it'll be interesting to see. As I said, that obviously there's the four at the back. How he manages to. I mean, we know Erling's going to be playing up front, but where the rest of them are fitting in around that, I'm not too sure, to be quite honest. Again, it'll just be like everybody else, just waiting to see how the team and how the game goes to see where people's going to fit in.
I'm going to let you sit on the bench, and I'm going to force Nick to give me an answer. Let's say that we know Ederson's in goal.
Yeah.
Pretty certain of that. Maybe one day we'll see something different. Walker, Akanji, Diaz, Gvardiol. Let's say that's a back four, and let's take a guess that Lewis is moved into midfield. Position for me. Where do you think Lewis, Gundogan, Bernardo are playing?
Well, you think Lewis he could be in there a little bit with Kovacic. to sort of, 'cause obviously missing Rodri is a huge thing, and he almost does sort of 1.5 players' jobs, doesn't he? So whoever's going to sit in there might need a little bit of help. But like Steve says, we certainly know Erling's going to be up front, and I think it'll be the rotation of the players. Obviously, Jack will be out wide. So the formation will change. Akanji can sometimes step in, not quite probably as good at that as John Stones, but it might give licence for Kyle Walker to get high and wide down the right-hand side, which he loves doing. So it'll be really interesting, and whatever formation they sort of line up for the kick-off won't be the formation that the game is ongoing. It'll be constantly changing, and Pep will be tinkering depending on what Newcastle do. So it's really interesting. A little bit sitting on the fence like Steve, but it'll be really interesting, as it always is with City, because it's not always about the formation they start with. It's just about the rotations and the interchanging of players and the movement of players as well.
So basically, what we're telling you all is we're not sure. We're going to find out when the game starts. But let's talk more about that midfield, because obviously we saw what happened to Rodri at the Arsenal game last Sunday. I think we all kind of had an inclination as soon as it happened that it was going to be something serious, and it really is. We know from Pep's press conference that he's had, I don't want to see it again, it'll make me cry. He's had an operation this week. He is going to be out for the rest of the season. Now, as far as I'm concerned, Rodri is irreplaceable. Mm-hmm. He needs to win the Ballon d'Or. Hopefully he can get up there in a wheelchair, in a cast. Someone can carry him. I don't care. I want him there to pick up the Ballon d'Or that he deserves to win, and I really hope that he does win it. He's irreplaceable for me. We've got a year. We've got the whole season. We've not got him, Steve. What do we do? What do we do in the interim? How do you think Pep, looking at the midfield today, is covering that, is replacing him?
Well, I think obviously Kovacic is in the team there. As I said, Rico Lewis could be in there. Sometimes, unfortunately, with people's injuries or suspensions, a player comes in that wouldn't ordinarily be in there, and all of a sudden they've grabbed the chance. So it's a perfect opportunity for players now coming in, because we all know Rodri's going to be out for a long, long time. And it's up to these players that do come in to grab the chance. I mean, anybody that comes in is a very good player. They're at Manchester City, of course they're a good player. But it is a difficult one to replace him. He is pretty much irreplaceable. You look at his stats when he plays for City, how well they do when he is playing and what it is when he's not. I don't think you get many arguments about him in that position as probably the best in the world. So of course you're gonna miss him. But it's up to the other players to step up. This is why they're at a club like Manchester City. When you get your opportunity, you've got to grab it, and the lads that's in the place at the moment, it's up to them to keep it and perform week in, week out.
What do we do, say, come January, Nick? Because obviously the window don't open again until January. In January, you've then got the latter stages of the Champions League. Would you look to move in the market in January? Well,
I think you'll have to see how the team's doing at that time. If the players step in and sort of do well, and City are sort of flying high at the top of the league, then it might not have to. But you would imagine it's something they'll be looking at closely. It's not a massive fan of bringing people in January to go straight into the team, Pep. Sometimes the flat prices are inflated. So it'll be an interesting one, but yeah, it's certainly... listen, if Rodri was missing from any team in the world, it's going to be the detriment of that team, and is that sort of good? But we have got good players, like Steve said. It is Manchester City. Whoever's going to come in is going to do a good job, and they might just have to tinker with, he's sort of... because he's so good and so strong, and he breaks up play well, and he starts play well, and he's just the best player in the world in that position. So he's going to be irreplaceable, whichever team he was playing for. So it's going to be really interesting, but still got a lot of talent in there, a lot of good players. But it's, a lot of people say that Rodri is, and I agree with them as well, that in the big games he can be the difference, because he's a big game player. He's sort of won pretty much everything there is in the game. He's sort of like at the peak of his powers, like you said, potential Ballon d'Or winner. So yeah, he's a huge loss, but I'm sure Pep can find a way, as he always does.
I feel even more relieved and more happy now that we signed Gundogan as well. I already thought it was great, but...
I mean, the signings sort of come out of nowhere, didn't there? Was no sort of rumblings, and then a couple of days before you started hearing things, and then it happened, and now it's been an absolute monster signing for us, because he could be a really sort of key player for us, and he's been there and done it, and he's got the T-shirt. There's no settling in period with him. He knows exactly what will be expected of him. So, yeah, he could prove to be a real, especially on a free transfer as well.
I feel better about the situation because I know we've got Gundogan. Steve, does he settle your nerves a bit?
Absolutely. And I think for all the City fans as well as the manager, as well as the players, we all know what he can do. And as we've said that, which is absolutely right, he knows how City work. And it isn't a case of we need to put him in, take him out, put him in. You can put him in because you know he's just going to completely just settle in there because he's used to that. So again, as it has been said, it's turned out to be a bit of a masterstroke, really, considering what's happened to Rodri, unfortunately. But as I said, with him, with Kovacic, I said Rico Lewis could fit in there as well, possibly. So it'll be interesting to see how they do perform today. Today is going to be a tough game. I mean, as I said, we always know that the games up at St James's are always tough games. But without, obviously, Rodri and Kevin De Bruyne is not playing as well as the manager was saying yesterday, it's up to the lads that do come in. As I said, a lot of them will be waiting a long, long time for their opportunity. Now they've got their opportunity, it's up to them to grab it.
It's not only Rodri, of course, that's out at the minute. Kevin's injured again for this game today. I mean, Rodri and Kevin De Bruyne are two of the best players that have ever played in the Premier League and would, as far as I'm concerned, get into any team in the Premier League. Kevin's also out, and we know how pivotal he was for this game last year, Nick. Of course, it was the game where he returned last year, and it was this magical ball that he played. Look, oh, God, his goal, and then his return last year was one of the key moments of the season. For me, there's no Kev either.
There isn't, but I think the thing is, with De Bruyne is we missed him last season.
Was that Rodri to Kev as well? It was, wasn't it? Oh.
Getting worse, isn't it? But yeah, we did it without him last year. He came back with a bang in this. I mean, this was one of the greatest comebacks you'll ever see from a player who's been out for so long. And then, he did great to start. Then had a little bit of a dip in form to find his sort of match fitness. So, but we have done it before without him, and they've got other players that, Phil Foden obviously coming to a more central area, did really well there. So we have got other players, not exactly like De Bruyne, but players that can fill in better than probably can for Rodri. So, yeah. But listen, if you take, KDB and Rodri out of any team, it's going to weaken the team. But we've done it without KDB, and the big question is now, can we do it without Rodri?
Oh, gosh, Nick, you just made me stomach jump when you said that there. OK, right, yes, and I think we can. Because when you look at the rest of the team, when you look at the rest of the squad, you still see world-class players everywhere. When I look at that team today, though, no Savio, no Doku, obviously going with Bernardo, who we're guessing will be on the right, but as we said, we'll probably interchange around with Jack as well. What's the kind of difference? Why is the no Doku, no Savio for you today?
I think Pep's the man to answer that. As I said, with the two of them, you look at the impact that the players, that them two players have had. They're explosive players. You look at Jack and Bernardo, they haven't got the pace of the other two. But I think the other two, in Grealish and Bernardo, their ingenuity on the ball, sort of cleverness, how to draw players in, is a little bit of a different thing for the manager to look at. Again, I think for them two, we all know what they're very, very good at in Jack Grealish and Bernardo. They like dragging players towards them, which then they'll release the ball. And then obviously, because there's been Newcastle players moved across, there's gaps there. Whereas Doku and Savino, when they get it, they're more or less kind of trying to run at players, the trickery, they're trying to get down the byline and stuff like that. So it is a different sort of game plan, I think, from the manager, but it'll be an interesting one. But as you said, when those two players have gone out and those two players have come in, world-class players, by the way. So, I think if you look at the Newcastle team, the players that's playing, they're thinking, oh, right, he's out. Oh, wow, he's in. It is one of them. Players do look at team sheets and think, wow, it's going to be a tough afternoon for me this afternoon.
Good. I hope they're feeling that.
Sorry, Nat. I think as well, though, it's, maybe 60 minutes. Imagine, being a full-back at Newcastle and you're seeing Savino and Doku warming up. You're thinking, if it couldn't get any worse. So they're really big, because they've got the pace and the trickery, really good impact players. So, potentially see them from the bench and make a big impact on the game.
That's such a great point. You kind of, you're getting a bit knackered at that time, and then you look over and see two of the trickiest, fastest wingers that are going to come on and come at you. I love that. That makes me feel excited, Nick. Thank you very much. So that is the City team news. We will bring you the Newcastle team news very shortly as well, but we're going to head back over to St James's Park now, where RFG has only gone and found Joleon Lescott and Joe Cole.
Yes, thank you very much. Welcome to St James's Park. As you can see, I'm joined by two absolute legends of the game, Joe Cole and Joleon Lescott. Joleon looking incredible. Joe looking incredible as well. I must have once again missed the memo.
Why did you go to Joleon?
Because he's taller than me.
Yeah.
And that obviously he expects it now as well. You're looking amazing as well, Joe. Listen, let's talk about the title race to start, OK? Pep versus Arteta is heating up in the media a lot. Of course, both of you, both won the leagues. 3 times for you, Joe. Let's talk about that rivalry between Pep and Arteta. It's heating up a little bit, isn't it?
It's heating up. It's great. It's great that it's heating up this early. And I think it'll be a tighter title race this year. It's great they got history together. I think the difference between Ferguson and Mourinho's rivalry, they never really crossed over. these guys know each other inside out. You know, so it's a little bit of spice. And I love the fact that he spiced up the title race early doors. It's going to be great.
Julian, I could see the smirk from you the minute he said that. What are you thinking about everything that's going on?
No, I think it's great. I think it's kind of things that just outside fans want to see, neutral fans want to see. I'm just devastated that, like, retrospective action can be taken now. Do you know what I mean? Back in our day, if something was happening on the pitch and you got to wave it on the pitch, you got to wave it. Where now, like, they're looking back 2 weeks and it's like, well, he threw the ball. I'm like, if you got to wave it, that kind of stuff. So, but now it's good. And hopefully now they can stay tight to each other for a long period of time, because I think if one team runs away with it, I think it dilutes it a little bit.
I mean, one team that's going under the radar is Liverpool. They've started the season very, very well, Joe. Are they they'll be really happy, surely, to be out of the limelight and just be quietly going on with their business? Yeah,
this stage of the season, you just want to be racking up the points. You don't want to be getting involved with anything unnecessary. You just want to be going about it. And Slot's done a great job, because when Klopp left, there'd have been holes around the club that they wouldn't have even recognised. And so that's why they've been very clever, not brought anyone in and then spent any money. Keep your money in your pocket and make sure that everything's right for when you start bringing in. So I wouldn't even be surprised if in January Liverpool are there or thereabouts and there's a good opportunity to buy players in January. I think they may do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. They've started the season very, very well. Let's move on to today's game then. The last time Newcastle have lost here was when Oscar Bob scored, Jolien, and what a moment that was last season for us. It's a lot different for this City side. There's no Rodri today, there's no De Bruyne, and there is no Oscar Bob. How different is the preparation going to be for this time of the season? Yeah,
it's going to be different due to the time of the season, but like there was no Kevin for a large portion of that game. There's Phil back now. Again, Oscar Bob obviously was relatively new then as well, and that's probably announced himself in that moment, but listen, you've got the likes of Gundogan, who knows his club inside out, knows what Pep wants inside out. So, yeah, it's going to be difficult. And it's always difficult here. Joe will know as well as I do that if you come here and this crowd are behind this team, it's a very intimidating place to be.
And, of course, I mean, the start to the season as well, with them playing without Rodri, that'll give the group of players a lot more confidence, won't it, starting the season without him and winning games?
Yeah, I mean, Rodri's the record is unbelievable of him. You know, when you talk about top clubs, you used to be able to shift players in and shift players out, and they don't make much of a difference. His influence on this team is incredible, but they've had a great start without him, and there's enough great players. I think they'll cope, and I think Pep will just listen. He'll be gutted he's lost Rodri, but he'll want to think, right, how can I solve this problem? What can I do? John Stones in midfield. That's going to be the interesting thing over the next few weeks.
Quickly onto Newcastle as well, Jolien. You know Anthony Gordon really, really well, of course, from your coaching days as well. I mean, he's a player of top quality, but Harvey Barnes as well. Two English players were doing really, really well here.
Yeah, definitely both top players. And it was Harvey Barnes was someone I thought would probably apply a lot more pressure when he first joined to Anthony Gordon. Anthony Gordon rose to the challenge, unfortunately for Harvey and Newcastle. He got injured, but in regards to where they both are now, they're probably both at where Eddie Howe expected them to be, and the headache that you want as a manager.
And now quickly, before we head back to the studio, Joe, EAFC 25 is out and you've got a hero item and the man next to you is still yet to get his. What are your thoughts on that?
It's an absolute scandal. Honestly, get someone at EA, get this man a heroes card lively. He's a proper
Just give me
player.
some codes, man. Just give me some codes.
I've got some codes for you, don't worry.
You might have some codes for people watching at home. I'll drop you right in it. Listen, from a hero on FC to a future hero on FC. Let's head back to the studio, shall we?
I could say from another future hero on FC, but I feel like FG's not got a chance. Sorry, FG, mate. Love you. Thank you very much to FG, to Joe Cole and to Jolien Lescott there as well. So you've already seen the Manchester City starting 11 for today. Let's have a look now at the Newcastle starting 11, because it is also very interesting. And we in the studio have again been playing the formation game, trying to work out who is playing where. So we'll chat about that in just a second. That is the City team, just to refresh you there. Edison, Walker, Akanji, Diaz, Vardiol, Lewis, Kovacic, Gundogan, Bernardo, Grealish and Haaland. That is the City team. For the Newcastle team for today, there you go. It is Pope, Trippier, Shah, Byrne, Hall, Murphy, Guimaraes, who is the captain, Tonali, Gordon, Joe Linton and Barnes. So that is the Newcastle starting 11. You can see the substitutes there are on your screen, and what you will immediately have noticed is there is no Alexander Isak. There's also, of course, no Callum Wilson, who's currently out. So there is no clear striker in that Newcastle starting 11 or on the bench. Right, gents, we were just trying to work it out, pretty much like we were doing for the City team. Steve, we've talked it out and we've got a couple of guesses. Do you want to talk us through your first kind of who's playing up front? What are you thinking?
I think Gordon they'll try and use his pace, so I think he'd be more central. And I think, again, just with our discussions, I think Joe Linton might be in that 10 role because you've got Tonali and Guimaraes, that's in the middle. So I think he'll be the one. I think with long balls, you'll try and get Joe Linton up if it's anything aerial, because he's a big boy. So he's going to cause problems. I mean, obviously he came to Newcastle, he played in that sort of position and struggled badly. Obviously, since he's gone back and played in midfield, I mean, he's become a kind of a Newcastle legend, if you want. You know, the fans absolutely love him. And to be fair, his performances have been excellent. So they'll be asking a little bit something different from him today. I think the rest of it is kind of, you know, the back four is what it is. I think Byrne plays centre. I mean, obviously he's not a centre half as such. He's normally been playing out on the left, but Hall's there. I think Murphy will be on the right and Barnes on the left. Barnes, for me, in and out this season. I mean, I know there's only a few games gone, but in and out this season, he's probably been Newcastle's best player. He's certainly been the one that's been scoring the goals. I think it's a big blow to lose Isak. And whilst he hasn't been flying when it comes to goals, he's still a very, very good player. So they are going to miss him, which is, I thought he would play. I mean, we know he's been struggling with that toe injury. But obviously, this game's come a little bit too quick again for him. But we've got two teams there that are missing key players. So it'll be very interesting to see how it pans out.
I'm feeling fairly smug for selling Isak the other day out of my fantasy team as well, Steve.
He's still in mine.
Is he still in yours? Oh, yes. I took a punt and I sold him, so I'm happy about that. So we're thinking, we said Barnes on one side, Murphy on the other. We're thinking Joe Linton, Gordon.
Yeah.
That's our best guess we've got.
Yeah, and I think, like Steve says, you know, Gordon, he'll try and get in behind, use his pace, but he might come in short as well and try and get on the half turn. And it's important that, for their point of view, that Joe Linton gets up and supports him. Certainly from, you know, if Nick Pope's going long, and they'll try and get Joe Linton up there for his physical presence. But yeah, I agree with Steve. I think Harvey Barnes has been absolutely terrific this year. I remember watching him when I was working at Sheffield Wednesday. He was at West Brom on loan from Leicester as a young boy, and he was fantastic. Then he did really well at Leicester. And he's probably been Newcastle's best player this year. So he's got to be one to watch, cutting in on that right foot. But they've got some dangerous players. But yeah, a big thing is, you know, Alexander Isak not playing it. For me, he's one of possibly the best striker in the Premier League outside of the Champions League teams, if you like, or the Big Four or whatever. So that's a big miss for them. And they've not got loads, obviously, with Callum Wilson missing as well. They've got players on the bench, Almiron and etc. But they've not got loads of threat going forward in terms of reinforcements. But yeah, still got some dangerous players, and it's always a dangerous place to go, St James's Park, because, you know, if they get the lead and the crowd get going, it's a really intimidating atmosphere up there.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at the Newcastle squad, for me, it would be Isak and Guimaraes that I would happily take into our squad. So I'm happy that Isak is not playing today in the nicest possible way. But Guimaraes, for me, is still the standout player of that team, Steve.
He is. I mean, if I'm being brutally honest, I think he's a very good player, but I don't get all the hype that
really
kind of comes around him. You know, he's one of these players that... I suppose it's the day and age, you know, he makes a tackle and he's screaming to the fans of, like, trying to get the fans going and stuff like that. It's not my kind of thing either. But, yeah, I mean, the Newcastle fans absolutely adore him. I mean, to be fair, he hasn't really started the season that well. And in fact, Newcastle haven't. They haven't played really that well. And yet, last week, if they'd won at Fulham, they would have been top of the league, which is crazy because they haven't really started very well. And I think even today, if they win today, I think they go level on points with City. I just, for me, whilst I think it's a big blow that they're missing Isak and they're not playing very well, so it'll be interesting to see how they actually do perform this week. But today. But yeah, I mean, I'm probably one of the very few that kind of I like Guimaraes, but I'm not 100% sort of thinking, you know, why all the drama? Why all the kind of, he's wonderful this, he's wonderful that? But I suppose it takes all kinds to have you know, everybody's got different views.
Yeah, I love it. That's why we love football, because I love him. I would have him. I wish, you know, that maybe we'd gone for him in transfer windows gone past. He's really my sort of player that I really enjoy watching. But that is, of course, why we love football. But yes, watching the highlights of Newcastle so far this season and doing my research this week, I always like to listen to fan pods or watch some YouTube channels from fans. And then despite the results and where they are in the league, Newcastle fans aren't massively happy this season so far. I don't think they've been hugely impressed with the performances. I mean, sometimes you think, what more can we do? But yeah.
Yeah, they've almost become, you know, a victim of their own success, because they did so well and got to Champions League, and obviously Eddie Howe was getting lauded everywhere. It's almost like they've had a little bit of a coming down period, if you like, after the initial success. And yeah, it's difficult because, you know, fans demand, they don't only want to win, they want to win in a certain style. I mean, we're looking at West Ham at the minute, you know, they sort of pushed David Moyes out, and now, you know, they probably wish he was still there. So fans, I think they've always got to be careful what they wish for. And yeah, I do feel for Eddie Howe. I think he's done better than anyone expected him to do. When he first came in, it was almost like a stopgap appointment till they could get a, you know, Eddie Howe comes in, steadies the ship, then brings sort of big name in once the sort of Saudis had taken over. So yeah, but listen, like Steve said, it's, you know, they've not played particularly well, but the results have been decent, apart from last week. And, you know, it's sometimes signs of a good team when they're not always playing well and getting results.
Very much indeed. That's how I would be looking at it right now if I was a Newcastle fan. So it's 12:30 kick-off today in the Premier League. You've seen both the City team and the Newcastle team for today. And when we were talking, of course, before about the City team, we were mentioning the game at St James's Park last year, where, of course, a certain Oscar Bob scored, which I think might have been my favourite goal of the whole season, just with the what it meant at the time as well. Well, we're going to be joined now on our lovely big screen by Richard, and Richard is from our official supporters club in the land of Oscar Bob. It is Norway. Hello, Richard.
Hello.
Good morning. I'm liking, by the way, your Jack Grealish, Jack Grealish month on your calendar on the wall, by the way.
Well, this is my lad's bedroom, so I've borrowed this because it's probably the most appropriate background.
I love how you're palming that off on your son and you're not just admitting that you have a Jack Grealish calendar. Which should be absolutely fine. Thank you very much for joining us today, Richard. I want to talk to you with Nick and with Steve in the studio as well about Oscar Bob. How much do the Norwegian supporters club love our Oscar Bob?
Oh, it's unbelievable that you've got a player like this who's come through junior ranks at clubs in Oslo, and now he's starring for City when he's fit. And it's just such a shame that he's had this unfortunate accident.
I was absolutely devastated for him, given the pre-season that he had. We're just seeing again the goal from last season, Richard. I mean, I said it was my favourite goal of the season, partly because of what it meant, the comeback, you know, Kevin, the fact that Oscar came on and scored it. But if we just isolate it as a finish, it's a brilliant finish.
Stunning. I mean, the speed of the feet there is fantastic. But if you go online and do a bit of a search on Oscar Bob, you can find some videos of him when he was a youngster. And he's demonstrating that quickness, that speed of the feet, even at a very young age. So it's something is in his locker anyway.
Yeah, and it was, as I say, Nick, that was a serious finish. Under that pressure, to have come on, City are getting beat, it was brilliant.
I think that's what announced Oscar Bob on the scene, isn't it? You know, he'd been had a few cameo appearances, but that was the one where, I mean, the whole game, because of De Bruyne coming back on, scoring the goal, and then De Bruyne's hit a pass that didn't really exist, and Oscar Bob's come in and quick feet and finished. And yeah, and it's such a shame because, you know, you mentioned pre-season, he was arguably City's best player in pre-season. So it's a real shame for him. Hopefully he's back sooner rather than later. And yeah, it'd have been a real, especially with the other injuries we've got, it'd have been, you just get the feeling it would have been his massive breakthrough season this year. And, you know, as we've seen in the last couple of years, obviously Phil Foden a few years ago and Rico Lewis, and it'd have been great for Oscar to be the next one. Hopefully he comes back fitter and stronger and sort of picks up where he left off.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so. Richard, forgive me, you don't sound like you've got a Norwegian accent.
No, I was born in Withington Hospital.
How have you ended up in Norway?
My ex-wife's Norwegian. I moved here 24 years ago.
And have you seen how has the increase in people supporting City been?
Oh, it's absolutely unbelievable. You're even getting little 2- and 3-year-old kids wandering around with Haaland shirts on. It's a huge change since I moved here. And I think the impact of Haaland, Oscar Bob, it can't be underestimated. And, you know, we've got the 50th anniversary of the Supporters Club coming up, and the numbers have swelled in the last few years. Obviously, with us winning the Premier League so regularly, but I think the effect of Oscar Bob and Erling Haaland, it can't be underestimated in terms of really bringing City to the fore in Norway.
So tell us about the branch. How often do you meet? Which part of Norway is the branch focused in, and how many members is there now?
There are members all over Norway, and usually there's a pub locally where people will meet. So Oslo, Trondheim, Bergen, Stavanger, you name it. There are blues everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And I can't remember the official numbers now, but we're, from being, sort of a few hundred members, probably at the early 2000s, now into thousands.
I love that.
I remember when I was there, there was 3 or 4 times a season the Norwegian Supporters Club would come over.
Wow!
Yeah, and I remember I think I did some sort of function somewhat in the club shop or something like that with the Norwegian guys. Yeah, so I met a few of them obviously a long time ago, but I can imagine since then the numbers have swelled, and obviously in the last sort of 2 or 3 years since obviously Erling's come and Oscar Bob's come on the scene as well, I can just imagine City's almost like the most popular English club or Premier League club in Norway. Yeah,
because of course, thinking about your generation, both your generations, obviously Alfie was here, Erling's dad was there at the time. So I guess back then, Richard, when Alfie was playing for City, I wonder if that sort of started or increased a bit of City fans in Norway?
A little bit, I think, but you can't compare his effect, his son's effect on the supporter numbers here. And I think also there were a number of other Norwegians in the league at the time. Obviously, at the moment, you've got 3 stars of the Norwegian team with Martin Ødegaard at Arsenal as well. But, things have changed. The style of football that we're playing, the fact that you have 2 members of the Norwegian national team as main City squad members in a team is the best in the world. Can't be underestimated.
Oh, absolutely. Did you guys ever go, when Alfie was around, did you ever go to Norway? Did we ever go there? No. You've never been?
No. Denmark, I think. We had Egil Ostenstad as well. He came on loan from Southampton for... so I remember Egil was, he'd done really well at Blackpool and Southampton. We got Joe, I think Joe Will brought him on loan. So, yeah, we had a couple of Norwegians then. Obviously didn't make as much of an impact as the Norwegians we've got now.
Of course. Richard, we've purposely not talked about Erling Haaland yet. We're going to welcome you back onto the show a little bit later, where, of course, we will talk about Erling Haaland then. But sometimes it's nice to focus on other things. And Oscar Bob was one of those.
Oscar Bob, I think, could have been an absolute star this season. It was a shame, but hopefully next year.
I very much hope so. Right, Richard, thank you very much. Stay there with us and we'll come back to you shortly and we'll have a good old talk about Erling Haaland and the Erling Haaland effect in Norway as well. Lovely. Thank you very much to Richard there joining us all the way from Norway. So we're going to head back over now to St James's Park because FG gets absolutely everywhere. Well, so does Michael Brown. If you noticed, he's got some sort of time machine that teleports him around everywhere. Well, 2 of the busiest men in football have got together. They are pitchside at St James's Park.
Yes, thank you very much. Welcome back to St James's Park and a massive welcome to Michael Brown. Brownie, we've just seen the City team. Initial thoughts?
It's always interesting. You're looking, going, right, who's going to play? What type of formation? I think the big talking point is Rico Lewis and Kyle Walker in the side and Josko Radiol. Where is Rico Lewis going to play? It looks like he could be playing in that midfield with Ilkay Gundogan, Kovacic. I think that's a huge responsibility. It's a real plus point again for the young man who's just getting better and better.
I mean, for him, from his perspective as well, even being in the same team with Kyle Walker, because he always speaks about how much the club captain, Kyle Walker, who is now, of course, the confirmed club captain, if you didn't already know, how much of an impact he has on him. To play on the same field as him, and to have someone like him behind him motivating him is super important as well, isn't it?
Well, let me tell you, he's made me aware of it, that he is the captain, as you can imagine, which is a great plus point, and obviously a privilege for him to get that, that's for certain. But yeah, he's learning all the time, Rico Lewis, not just off Kyle Walker, off the rest of the squad. John Stones, who's not playing today, he's also a big learning curve for him, because he could step in and be that sort of that number 6, that defensive player from centre-back positions, right-back areas. The level of understanding that he's got of the game at such a young age is fantastic. So how's he going to get on? How are they going to operate it? We'll see. Is Pep going to surprise us yet again? Because we're all saying, well, he's going to play in midfield. Who knows when it's going to happen? But we've seen the midfielders go out to wider areas to create space this season. So I think it's a real interesting game. It's a brilliant place to play football. The pitch is fantastic. Sun's shining. It's a tough game.
It is a tough game indeed, but a massive opportunity for Rico Lewis, which we're super looking forward to seeing how he gets on. Now let's look at the forward line then, shall we? Savinho is out. Bernardo Silva is in. Do you think that is more so to keep control of possession? Bernardo's fantastic at potentially, controlling the tempo with Jack on either side. And of course, with the likes of Rodri and Kevin out, and having that extra control, especially at a place like St James's Park, really important, isn't it?
I think we've got some exciting wide players for certain. Savinho, Jeremy Doku. But responsibility-wise, going back the other way, that's something they would say they could improve on. But we get why they do that, because they're the flair, they're the quick players trying to make things happen. But what Bernardo Silva gives you is that understanding to go back, help his full-back. Jack Grealish is very good at it as well. So there's a bit more balance, a bit more control. I think later on in the game you can change that and bring the players on. Phil Foden can also do that role as well, if needed, regards to tracking back. So the balance is really good of the team. Haaland at the top of the pitch, he's going so well. And it's an interesting game. Newcastle side who are missing players. I think that's a plus point from a City's perspective. But I expect a strong performance.
And looking at the record between the two sides, the last time Newcastle beat us here was under Rafael Benitez. Does that play a part?
Just go steady on FG.
Well,
we don't know where to talk about certain
question.
things. Why are we doing this? Just keep that away. Let's just make sure we get a win.
That doesn't matter at all in any preparation or anything, does it?
But you obviously think it does a little bit psychologically.
I mean, from a fan's perspective,
so you're asking me as a fan now, or
I'm asking you as a presenter and an
as a presenter. But listen, it's a nice record to have a psychological edge against your team that you're coming up against. I think the players enjoy coming here. I've been sat in commentary position for the last few seasons, and there's been tests at times. You're under pressure. When this place gets rocking, you know how loud it is. So it's good that we've got that type of record. We expect goals. That's what we want to see. Newcastle side will come out and try and do that. I don't think they'll just sit in and defend.
Now, we're going to reveal to you the Newcastle team in a second. But, I mean, before we do so, let's talk about potentially the forward line, because there's one man who is not in the starting lineup today. Yep, OK, the team news is Nick Pope in goal, Kieran Trippier, Fabian Schär, Joe Linton, Sandro Tonali, Anthony Gordon, Harvey Barnes, Lewis Hall, Jacob Murphy, Dan Burn and Bruno Guimaraes. So one man is not playing, and that's Isak.
You see me smiling?
I did see you smile. It's a big shock, isn't it? We didn't expect that, and I'm pretty sure maybe potentially Man City prepared for Isak.
I was just setting up in comms, and there was a little whisper that Isak wasn't playing. I thought, oh, yes, please. Because if there's one player, I feel like, and I know it's not my job to sort of go and recruit, but there's one player that anybody would take is him. I think what he brings you, those intelligent runs, he's got that pace. And do you like Thierry Henry, where he pulls out onto left-hand channels and he's got that finish across the goalkeeper. He opens up that right foot. I think he's got everything. Wonderful player. So that is a good one. How are they going to set up? I'm sure that's what you're going to ask me next.
That was exactly the next question. That's huge praise, by the way. You are too good at this. You could do this on his own, Brownie, couldn't you? Yeah. How are they going to set up Brownie? I mean, are we going to see Anthony Gordon potentially playing through the middle?
Yeah, I think we could see that. And only recently, Kyle Walker's talked about Anthony Gordon, about how he's dangerous, how he's got the confidence, and maybe that sort of youngster raw, getting more mature. He runs past people. He's not afraid at any point. So if he's playing on the shoulder, he's got pace. We've got to be really aware of it. Harvey Barnes, we might see down that left-hand side instead of Anthony Gordon. So it's a plus point that Isak's not playing, but there's still danger around the pitch. The middle of the pitch is really interesting, FG. Tonali coming back in. He was obviously a key signing. He's missed all the football last season because of certain situations, and see how he gets on.
Yeah, it's definitely massive for him, and I'm sure as a midfielder, when you're looking and seeing the likes of Rodri and De Bruyne not in the team, you're going to be sort of a bit more happier to be playing against someone like Rico Lewis. The way Sandro Tonali plays, he plays aggressively, he plays in the front row, as does Bruno. Do you think they're going to sit together and you think it's going to be a low block, or do you think they're going to have a go because they lost the last game against Fulham?
I mean, they're always going to have a go. I think the interesting point is how do you come up and stop City? I think that'll be an Eddie Howe's remit first, and the extra midfielder, because we're wondering how is he going to do it. Is a centre-back going to come in and make 4? Almost a box, it depends. Ilkay Gundogan can get forward at any time. Kovacic, whether he's going to sit all the time with Rico Lewis. So you have to adapt. As a midfield 2, whether you play as a 4-2-3-1, depending on what you can do. So they'll adapt to whatever City's going. They'll try and be aggressive, try and press wherever possible. But they're dangerous, Newcastle. They're hurting a little bit. We expected much more when they got into the Champions League. Financial situations have changed for them. But I still think at home here they can give anybody a game.
Yeah, they've not been beaten here since Oscar Bob scored last as well. That's another stat for you. Let's head back to the studio. Nicky Weaver.
I'm sure they've got some stats in the studio.
Well, Nicky Weaver and Steve Howey are there.
No,
if you've got a message
there's no stat.
No, there's not. Any message for anyone in the studio?
Yeah, it'd be nice to see you guys. Hopefully have a nice show. I'm sure the stats will all be reeling off. Steve Howey will be talking about Newcastle as well, that's for certain.
He's put the pressure on the guys in the studio for a stat, so over to you guys for a stat. We'll start with Natalie.
Quick, I've got no stats. The last time City were beaten at home was November 2022 by Brentford, Ivan Toney. That's all I've got.
There's only one stat that matters. That's the scoreline after the game today, I think.
Yes, Nicky Weaver, take that, FG and Michael Brown. Thank you to FG and Michael Brown, apart from throwing us under the bus. The pitch looking beautiful there as well. The sun's coming down on the pitch as well. You can see the City team there. They are going out to warm up now. And there's our Georgia in the background, capturing it all for our social media as well. So the City team, if you're just joining us, is on the bottom of your screen now. The starting 11 of Edison, Walker, Akanji, Diaz, Vardiol, Lewis, Kovacic, Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, Jack Grealish, and Erling Haaland. I like looking at their pictures, you know. The only person that's smiling brightly on that is Kovacic. So I'm all right with that. The rest of them are kind of going for the kind of moody, tough look as well. But Kovacic is just shining bright, and hopefully he does that today as well. And the pitch is looking beautiful there. Looking beautiful there today at St James's Park. Now, of course, we played midweek against Watford in the League Cup, which a game, of course, we won. And only about 48 hours earlier to that, we had our last Premier League game, of course. We played Arsenal in it. Have you all taken a breath? Have you all settled down now? Because I did feel like it took me a good few days to kind of recover and process that game and take a breath and think about everything that happened. And it does feel like a game, although it was a week ago, it feels like it was a while ago now, because, Nick, I feel like we've just been talking about the Arsenal game all week, and not necessarily the football, although we have been talking about that, but we've been talking a lot about things that happened outside of the football as well. I can't remember a game for a while where it feels like we've talked about it so much.
Yeah, it was a really interesting game. I mean, the game last season at Etihad was quite a dour sort of nil. They both sort of cancelled each other out. So this time round, it certainly wasn't that. Obviously, City started off absolutely fantastic in the game. Then, you know, Haaland scored to go 1-0 up, and then before you know it, just for half-time, Arsenal are 2-1 up, and then obviously Trossard gets sent off, and that sort of turned the game on its head. And then the second half was just a real sort of professional and disciplined display from Arsenal. There was sort of a 5 and a 4, then it was a 6 and a 3, and the way they defended was sort of unbelievable, really. And a lot's been made of the dark arts and all this sort of thing, which has been blown hugely out. Listen, Arsenal have got to do what they've got to do to try and win a game. They were hanging on, they had the lead. They sort of didn't want to commit too many men forward, and they made it really difficult for City. And I don't think I've ever seen a game where a team's had so much possession, sort of 20, 25 yards out, and just couldn't go anywhere because there was just no gap. So it was a really interesting game, and you know, obviously a lot's been made of it in the media, but I think in the cold light of day, you know, when both managers woke up Monday morning, they'd have probably both been reasonably happy with the point, with the way the game sort of unfolded.
Yeah, because it was a test for both teams so early in the season. The first real test, you know, the big test. Essentially, it's Arsenal and Liverpool that test us. And it was the first big test of the season. Steve, what did you make of it?
I thoroughly enjoyed the game. I think for both teams, it's kind of, you know, can we set a marker here? Can we show our authority? And I think both teams just went for it. And as we've said, you know, last season, the two games weren't probably the best. So it was great that there was an early goal. Obviously, Haaland gets that. So, like, all over the pitch, there's different battles. I mean, the big gap here, but I think it's Gundogan makes a great run, really, which kind of keeps out Gabriel from coming across to Haaland. I mean, Haaland finishes it and you think, is he going to go to the side of the goalkeeper? Is he not? But this is a great ball as well.
I love this moment where he's like, here.
Yeah. He's more or less showing him where to go, like where to put it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're thinking, has he held on to it too long? But he's done it to perfection. And as I said, that finish, normally, when he's hitting it with that foot, he'd be coming to the corner next of us, kind of on Haaland's left-hand side, but he hits it more or less straight past the goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper's got absolutely no chance.
It feels like to me, because I completely agree with you about last season, certainly the game at us, where we know that Arsenal parked the bus for the game. It feels to me, Nick, like we finally have a rivalry, and I mean that not in any way that I am shook or worried or scratched or dented or anything like that. I mean it's a good, fun rivalry, like we had with Liverpool for a few years, or like we had with United 10 years ago, and I'm loving it.
Yeah, you know, the press obviously make the story, don't they? But yeah, the rivalry's there. They're the two best teams in the league. They've been for a couple of years now. You know, Arsenal are serious title contenders. Obviously with Arteta's links to this club as well. Both managers are Spanish. So there's a lot of things sort of in common, and they both play good football. Arsenal, you know, last couple of years, their points tallies would have won many Premier Leagues, but the bar is so high now, it's very, very difficult, and teams don't drop that many points. But yeah, there's a big rivalry there. Fans love it. I think players love it. The hype before the game is incredible. The hype after the game, you know, it's all we spoke about all week, isn't it? So yeah, it's a great rivalry, and they are the two best teams in the league. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
I can't wait for the reverse fixture at the Emirates already, Steve.
Oh yeah, I mean, you've heard some of the players when they were getting interviewed after it, and already they're looking forward to that game. I mean, really, you've just got to focus on what's ahead of you. But of course, everybody now is kind of everybody's mouth's watering, really looking forward to that game, because again, as I said, the individual battles all the way around the pitch are just going to be so good. I mean, you looked at the one where Haaland basically he's coming up against two big lads, two very good players. You know, each trying to bully each other. I mean, you've seen a couple of times last week where Haaland's ran into one of their players and then afterwards and then throwing the ball at the back of his head and all this kind of stuff. I thought it was brilliant. You know, sometimes, as we've said again, you know, you look forward to these games and they get built up to be huge games, massive games and really exciting, and they end up not being. Whereas I thought that game there was an unbelievable watch, just because of everything that happened. You know, going into the lead, getting beat 2-1, the player getting sent off, and then there's just the onslaught from Manchester City. Are they going to break them down? Are they going to break them? And we said something before we came on air as well. If City had gotten the goal probably 10 minutes before that, then it would have been that again, can they get the win? But I thought, as I said, a lot's been made of all the different stuff that Arsenal have done. I haven't got a problem with it. I just think it's the way that, you know, they're trying to do everything that they can to win the game. You know, so you've got to say, listen, fair play. And then it's up to City to sort of say, well, look, we don't agree with it, but this is what we're going to try and do to break you down.
Yeah,
good watch.
It had absolutely everything, and it was a need. And for me, another reminder that Erling Haaland is just a big kid, a big fan, a big football fan that just loves football and reacts in a way that we probably all would have reacted. Now, of course, we take on Newcastle today, a 12:30 kickoff. And as we mentioned a little bit earlier, Steve Howey, of course, played for Newcastle and he played for City. Now, very shortly, we're going to pick a game out from the vault that you were both in, where City played Newcastle and won. But before that, let's have a little walk down memory lane with Steve, shall we?
Well, I signed at Newcastle when I was 13 and I went there as an attacking midfield player. We didn't have any centre forwards then. There was myself and a player called Lee Clark. We scored goals for fun. It was the same for what was then the reserves, and then that moved into the first team. But obviously, as I said, I wasn't a centre forward initially, and it was only until Ozzy Ardelius come in, because the team was struggling at the time as well, that he just thought, I tell you what, why don't I try you at centre half? And I was actually going to play a proper game, but then he got sacked. But then Kevin Keegan comes in, you know, things just develop from there. You go from not playing in that position at all to being 2 years down the line, playing for your country. So, well, we're all still in touch because of the journey we went on, because it was kind of similar to the Man City thing, where you're kind of in the depths of despair, where the team is, where it just should not belong. And the team just goes from there to where it is now. It was difficult at times. I mean, obviously the fans, you can see the fans now, you know, the passion that they've got. but we went from 0 to 100 in a couple of years, and obviously that was like the kind of the Keegan revolution thing. And the club did go kind of from strength to strength from that, but then obviously then had a massive period, a long period, where the team really struggled and the club. And then at Man City, again, you know, obviously, unfortunately, we got relegated my first year under Joe. Kevin came in, and again, you know, Darren Huckabee, Nicky, Sean Wright-Phillips, Ali Benarbia, Goats, Al Berkovic, Paolo Wanchop, and then obviously Nicky Sanelka. That's your forward line. And I can remember saying to Dunny a while ago in one of the games, we were just stood there watching these magnificent players play, and I said to them, just take it all in, because I didn't on the first time with Kevin and the lads that I played with there. And I said to Dunny, take this in, because actually we're getting paid to be on the same pitch as these, which is absolutely scary. It's a privilege. Do you know what? It sounds pretty poor from my point of view, but I just loved my time there. The fact that it's such a brilliant club. I think the people at the club were excellent, but more importantly, the players, the lads, the relationships that I built there. I mean, you've got two lads in the studio now with you. And actually, Nicky, I was a little bit worried about him because I played against him when he was at Arsenal, and he was a pain. That's why I get the nickname the Wasp, because he was just a nightmare. And I thought, when I signed for City, am I going to get on with him? And as it worked out, we got on absolutely brilliantly. And it's probably just as well because he didn't drive then, so I had to pick him up every day from training and take him to training and back, so you owe me for that. Do you know, I had 14 years at Newcastle, absolutely loved my time there, got a massive sort of affiliation with the club, really want the club to do well, I think, and for the fans. But having said that, the time that I'd spent at City, I just fell in love with the place. I fell in love with the people, I fell in love with the fans, and particularly the two lads that's sitting in the studio, as well as a few of the other boys as well. Yeah, it's a difficult one, but I'm going to actually go for City. I know if Newcastle fans are watching that, then I'm going to be too happy. I'm reminded every day about the song. I mean, initially when I'd signed for Newcastle, I was just Judas or Traitor, stuff like that, which is fine. But then Peter Reid was the manager at Newcastle, and he'd signed my brother. So the Southern fans thought, we'll get together and we'll come up with a new song. And are you sure you want me to say the song? Go for it. So the song is, because he was called Lee, and he used to warm up and down in the touchline. So the song goes, Lee Howey, Lee Howey, Lee Howey, your brother is a...
Yes, I love that. Beep indeed on that. Thank you, Steve. I've got a couple of very quick, important questions. First of all, what is your dog's name?
Isla.
Is she a good girl?
She's a beautiful girl, very good girl.
Good, important dog information there that everybody will have wanted. And also, what was the jacket you were wearing?
During COVID, a few ex-players, kind of myself, Mark Crossley, Dean Windass, one or two others, we'd set up a kind of a charity called Walking's Brilliant, which was for mental health. So basically what we're trying to do on social media was to get people out the house, as I said, during COVID lockdown, just to get out, just to sort of just try and switch off and get some fresh air and be active. And the charity's gone from strength to strength. We've did a couple of walks and raised a hell of a lot of money for charity. We have golf days and stuff like that, and it's been going now for 4.5, 5 years. So it's been brilliant. Yeah, it's good.
Love that. And in terms of the end of the song, we just stay away from it. We cannot go there. Right. And we move on. Right, I told you we were going to find a game in the vault that they'd both played in, and of course City had won as well. So I'm going to take you all back to 2000 and 2001, which, by the way, I suddenly think about Caden Braithwaite that started for City midweek at 16 years old, who was born in 2008. Feel really old. I don't know about you two.
Yeah,
feel really old.
Very old.
So we go back to 2000, 2001. City beat Newcastle 1-0 that day. And Steve, you had a bruising encounter with Alan Shearer that day. What are your memories of this game?
Again, his record speaks for itself. I mean, he was a fabulous player. You know, scored a lot of goals, but I was very, very aggressive. I'm sure he was sharpening his elbows before that game as well, because he tended to use them quite a bit. But as I said, you just all the time, it's just elbow, elbow, elbow. I did get the last laugh though. I did catch him with an absolute beaut later on.
Yes.
But he was just playing against him. I used to love playing against him because you knew you were in for a tough ride. And you know, when you're a player, you want to play against the best players. And Al's up there with probably one of the best players in Premier League history.
So give me the juice. So he's what, getting you whatever he can, elbows, stamping on you.
Yeah, I mean, at the time I was playing with a broken toe, so I had to get it injected before every game, and we didn't want that to come out, but somehow it did get out, and it went into the press and the media, and obviously Al found out about it. Now, Al, bless him, he's not the sharpest tool in the box, and I can remember he was backing up against me, and Newcastle had a throw in, and you could see he was trying to work out which was my left foot. And obviously he's thinking, well, this is my right foot, this is his left foot, and he tried to stamp on it, and he missed it. We had a laugh about it because I knew what he was doing, and he knew what he was doing as well. But as I said, it became at times just our own personal battle. While the battle, I was wanting to win the game, we had a battle. Not only did we win the game, I won the battle as well because, as I said, I caught him with a really good one later on. I'm not too sure whether you can call it dark arts. I think it was just aggressive play. I'll go with aggressive play.
I'd love to know from a keeper's point of view, Nick, you're probably just watching all this, just chuckling to yourself, seeing them throw and stamping.
Yeah, it's sort of, the game's obviously changed now, isn't it? Sort of, you know, Alan Shearer sort of, not saying he delivered, but they led with their elbow a little bit more then. It was a lot more physical. I mean, the state of the pitch, you know, means, I mean, look at the pitch, we've commented on the pitch today and the pitch there. So play wasn't the same as it is now, and, you know, you could sort of slide in and, not saying you could 2-foot people, but it was a lot more physical then. And yeah, it was always a really, one of my favourite away grounds, I think, Newcastle, because it's, remember that day going and looking for mum and dad, and they were about a quarter of a mile away up in the gods somewhere. It's so far away. And yeah, we'd had a really bad run, and so it was a welcome away win for us at that particular time.
I have sat up there in the away stand at St James's many times, and it is indeed about a quarter of a mile away. You have a phenomenal record. FG was asking us for stats. We should have given this one to him. You played Alan Shearer 11 times. How many goals did he score against you?
I think it was 2. I think it was. I mean, I know he scored one when he played for Blackburn. It was the back post. He pulled on a lad called John Beresford, who was about this big. So, and then I think the other one was for City. And we had Carlo Nash. I think you must have been injured. Yeah. And Carlo was kind of like nervous before the game because it can be an intimidating stadium, you know, and when the noise and stuff like that. And he was like, Stephen, can you do me a favour? Give us the ball early so I can get a touch and stuff like that. We won the kick-off, and I'd sort of said to the lads, give it back to me because I'm going to give it to Carlo, give him a touch, get him settled. So, of course, we took the kick-off, ball comes to me, and I've played it to Carlo, and he's got so much time, but you can tell he's very nervous. And he takes a bad touch, and then he slips. Shearer never closed anybody down, but obviously he sniffed a goal. He closed him down. Carlo hit the ball, hit against him. We were 1-0 down. Of course, Kevin Keegan blamed me.
Really?
Yeah, I got the blame for it. But yeah, I think that was the only other one. So in open play, 1v1 against me and Al, did quite well against them.
Yes, Steve, I love that. What if you'd had, in one of the games that you had against Alan Shearer where he didn't score, of the 10 appearances where he didn't score against you, and you've had a battle and he's stamped on your toe and you've given him an elbow and it's been a rivalry the whole time, what would you have done if Alan Shearer had picked the ball up at the end of the game and chucked it at your head? I
would have laughed, to be quite honest. I mean, we get on. Yeah, I think I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago, actually. As I said, that's why I had nothing. I wouldn't complain about all the stuff that went on with City and Arsenal the other week. I think it's part and parcel of it. Now we don't see that as much. Well, actually nowhere near than what we used to before. And it's quite sanitised and it's a bit gentle, and you can't do this and you can't do that. Whereas, you know, back in the day you could get away with absolutely all kinds because there wasn't a million cameras around and stuff like that. But stuff like that, yeah, you would just laugh about it. And obviously afterwards, you'd go in the players' lounge, you'd have a beer just have a joke about certain things and just look forward to the next time you meet.
I love that. I love hearing the old stories, and of course talking about the incredible striker Alan Shearer. We're now going to move on and talk about our incredible striker Erling Haaland, and we're welcoming back Richard, who is from the official supporters club in Norway. Thanks for sticking with us, Richard. I feel like we should change your calendar and see if there's an Erling Haaland page quickly, because I'd like to talk to you about our Erling. Oh, what month has he got? Let's have a look.
Oh, it's Rodri.
Oh, Richard. Oh, gosh. That was a sad turn of the calendar there. Yes.
I thought it might have been just a Jack Grealish calendar. So it was just every day, every month was Jack.
Apparently he does have a calves calendar out there. I don't think he made it. I think it might be a fan one.
Really?
Yes, there is a Jack Grealish calves calendar if you're looking for Christmas presents.
You fit it on the calendar.
Apparently out there. So, Richard, I'd like to talk to you about Erling Haaland. Try and give us an idea. We know how big he is here. We know, obviously, the worldwide football superstar that he is. What is it like in Norway? How big is Erling Haaland in Norway?
It's difficult to compare, really, because he is such a superstar here. I don't think there's ever been a Norwegian player who's had the impact that he's had on football. I can't think of one off the top of my head. Steve, Nicky, correct me if I'm wrong, but this guy, in terms of being the absolute best at what he does, and coming from such a small country, it's incredible. And you see Haaland shirts absolutely everywhere. And what I liked was, Steve and Nicky, when you're talking about how the game used to be much more physical, you see Erling, and he's very, very physical. The way he just pushes people out of the way. And one of his signature moves, if you watch it, he'll give somebody a nudge just to buy himself a little bit of space. And it's fantastic to see.
That celebration is also fantastic to see. I love that. You mentioned earlier, Richard, that the official supporters club in Norway is celebrating 50 years. That means that you guys, did you guys have an eye on baby Erling Haaland? And I feel like you might have watched him grow, like kept a track on his career the whole time, hoping you were going to have a Norwegian superstar on your hands.
Well, I think there was sort of, when he was coming through and before he went to Dortmund, you're starting to get a feel this guy could be very, very special. And obviously, with City being in the market for the best players in the world, he thought, if we can get this guy, it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. And obviously, being in Norway, the focus has been on him for a lot longer than it has been, say, in the UK. He's been such a growing star for the Norwegian national team. He is the mainstay now, along with Gordon Nossel. So, it was just an absolute, mayhem when he signed for City.
I feel like there would have been the official supporters club would have had like a massive street party when it was announced that Erling was signing for City.
Well, I think possibly from the point of view of we knew that the membership was going to skyrocket.
Yeah, I can imagine very, very much. I mean, what do you think? What do you personally, and what do you hope for Norway as a country Erling Haaland can go on and achieve?
I think if he can, together with Oscar Bob and Martin Ødegaard, if they can build a team around him, you could see the Norwegian national team getting back to the level it perhaps was in the 90s. I remember watching them with a famous victory against Brazil, but for many years now, they've really struggled. And we haven't seen the talent coming in the same way as in the 1990s. But there is a huge amount of focus now on junior football. The number of clubs that are around, the number of talented players is absolutely fantastic. And so hopefully that will start to show through in the national team. But we have to remember it's a small country, a small population.
Give us a score prediction before you go, please, Richard. What are you expecting today? What are you hoping?
I'm going to go 2-0 City. I'm going to go clean sheet for once.
God, that'd be nice. That'd be nice. Is it 2 for Haaland, do you think?
No, I don't think so. Although with the plays he's got behind him today, I mean, just look at the creativity he's got. Yeah, it could be. Who knows? But I fancy Bernardo might get them.
Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you for joining us. Please send our love to everybody in the official supporters club over in Norway. And I don't know, just thank the whole country for Erling Haaland. I don't know who we need to thank. We'll just thank everybody. Thanks, Richard.
I'll thank the supporters club first of all.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much to Richard from the official supporters club over in Norway. So less than 15 minutes now before the 12:30 kickoff in the Premier League. City taking on Newcastle at St James's Park. As always, you'll get full commentary for free on the Manchester City app with Alistair Mann and with Michael Brown. And with that, we're going to head back over now to FG, who's pitchside at St James's Park.
Yes, thank you. Welcome back to St James's Park. Brownie, what are you doing?
Just having a look, mate. It's quite nice this morning. It's got a bit of product on, a bit of colour, a bit of rinse. A little bit thin for your age, but
thankfully the camera's not going to show that. You're looking great as well, Brownie. Winter coat's out now.
Winter coat's out, all the sun's out, but
dropping.
it's going to be a bit cold later, I think.
It is a nippy one. That was the weather report by Michael Brown. Let's go back now. Let's talk about the game, shall we, before we head back. Players are warming up, preparing. How do we see the start?
I think it's something that you want control. You look at Pep, how he's set up. The midfield looks like it's got energy and understanding with experience and youth with Rico Lewis. The wider positions, Jack Grealish is going to be so important. I think how he gets back and recovers, you know what Trippier can do. He'll try and get forward, try and get some deliveries, and Bernardo will do that naturally on the other side. So strong start with control. Can we get an early goal? Because this place will start strong, won't it? The atmosphere will be up. Can we quieten down? I think that'll be so important that the possession's in City's favour very, very early.
And when you're looking at the bench, the substitutes are warming up to our left-hand side. You've got the likes of Nunes, you've got Savinho, you've got Doku, you've got Phil Foden, you've got James McAtee, you've even got John Stones, who scored a last-minute equaliser at the Etihad last time out in the league. That is a very creative substitutes bench.
Yeah,
one which Pep will probably be happy that's there just in case it gets to the late stage of the game.
That's what you want. You're going to need those players. You need everybody. I think the games are coming thick and fast now. That rotation seen in the week against Watford. There's some fresh legs out there. 2 centre-backs, 2 central midfielders. Ilkay Gundogan and Kovacic have had some rest, and they're going to need it. We're going to have to try and be creative in every single squad. So the subs are important, the timings of them. I think that's where it's underestimated how good Pep, his support team, analysis, etc. in the first half, how much they see, then at half-time, how they react. So I think we always are ready for changes.
And of course, Newcastle had a game postponed midweek. They were supposed to be playing in the Carabao Cup. That's now taking place in October. That preparation week, because you imagine their staff still would have prepared for that game, it got cancelled later. Is it sometimes sort of not a good thing that game doesn't go ahead? Of course, the players have extra rest, but the backroom staff were probably preparing for the fixture right until it got cancelled.
Yeah, well, all the preparation will be done, that's for certain. But I think what it's done is give them a full week on the training ground. We know how tactically aware Eddie Howe, what a coach, front foot on the grass every single day. He'll have got a lot of detail into this group to try and find a solution to try and stop Manchester City's start. It's been an incredible start to the season. So they'll be ready. They'll have everything in order. So for them, it's definitely a benefit not having the midweek game.
Absolutely, and of course we were talking about it so much before, but let's touch on it again. Rico Lewis, we think, is starting in midfield. We saw him before warming up on his own, doing kick-ups and just getting himself into the zone. When you're that young and you've had such a great start to your career, he's had man of the match performances away in Europe, he's had a man of the match performance away for England. Is Rico becoming someone we can really, really rely on?
Are you on a percentage share of Rico Lewis?
Hey, I would invest in stocks.
He's your mate now, isn't he?
I would invest in Rico Lewis stocks.
That's what the studio needs to discuss. Rico Lewis is FG's mate, and we have to mention him every interview. He deserves it, though. How well is he doing? I'm interested to see how he gets on in the middle of the pitch, because you've not got that recovery run into wider positions, looking to see where your wide player is. Can he drive forward? He's made the box on several occasions as well, so he'll have that licence. Who's going to play the pivot? Will it just be Kovacic, or will Rico Lewis do it?
I was just about to ask as well, because Gundogan loves to make them runs into the box as well. Do you think Ilkay will probably sit back a little bit more, or do you think he's still going to be the man getting into the box? Because he's fantastic at getting in them positions, isn't he?
Yeah, we've seen him ghosting late on with big goals. And he's had a couple of chances, hasn't he, only recently. It's good to see him back, good to see him in full flow. He has that understanding of when to go. His football brain's brilliant. Him and Pep Guardiola are very close for that reason. They understand the game in the same way. So he knows what Pep wants. He'll be guiding Rico Lewis. Kovacic might be the one who sits and understands that he has to be that protection. You're going to have that in front of the two centre-backs for certain. He likes to travel with it, Kovacic. I think less and less if he's going to play that role, or less the space is there. That is his strength, which is difficult to take away, but every time in different squads and different build-ups, you've got to find a different way of playing.
Do we sort of look at Rodri and sort of overlook his attacking prowess as well? Because for a defensive midfielder, he creates so much. He's so good at his long field passes and stuff. Is that something we're going to miss as well from him being out?
We are, because if you look, I think it's important for this group to have a diagonal switch to a 1v1, especially when you've got Doku, you've got Savinho, Phil Foden if he's a 1v1 situation. Jack's a little bit different, and Bernardo, they like it to feet. Then they'll be creative and come in different positions. But John Stones can do that. He has got that range. So if he comes in and plays a 6, I'm sure we'll see him in that position several times with no Rodri. He's a huge miss to the football club. We wish him well, by the way. It's what he's had to go through. No footballer anyway wishes that on anybody. And he's been an absolute pleasure to watch for the last few seasons, how he's improved, how he's got better and better. He just is Rodri. He's irreplaceable, and that's unfortunately no disrespect to the other players. They don't play like Rodri in the 6, and they're not supposed to. They're not here for that. We don't often just have another number 6 like Rodri to replace.
Yeah, absolutely. We wish Rodri very, very well. And, of course, we wish the players behind us very well. We're going to head back to the studio and we will see you at full time.
Thanks, FG. Thanks, Michael Brown. I was liking where it went a little bit blurry there because we didn't really need to look at their faces. So I quite like that there. Well done, the team on the ground there. So kick-off is less than... Oh, my gosh, it's about 8 minutes. Oh, my gosh. Right, guys, we need... first of all, I want to do score predictions. Then we're going to do our prediction game. So score prediction for today, Nick?
3-1 City.
Yes! Steve?
I was going to go 2-1 City, but now I'm going 2-0 because they haven't got Isak.
OK. You're both making me feel better. I like that a lot. As you'll know by now, hopefully you'll know you've been watching all season, we have a game that we're doing with every single guest and all the presenters this season. It is called the Possession Game. We are asking all of our guests to predict how much possession City will have in a game, and we are keeping a league table of it. So, possession for today, Nick.
64%.
OK. OK. Steve?
Did I not say 64?
No, you said 62.
62%.
See, we checked this while FG was talking because we didn't want any arguments in the studio. I'm going 58. I feel a bit more conservative today. I think it's because I feel a bit nervous.
We're kind of in
the same ballpark, aren't we?
Yeah.
Don't think it'll be a million miles away from... I don't think it'll be lower than yours, certainly.
It won't be an Arsenal-Man City second half kind of thing, will it?
88% possession.
Yeah.
I bet nobody predicted that last week on the show, by the way. So, as you can see, the teams there are lining up in the tunnel. You will get full commentary of this game on the City app with Alistair Mann and with Michael Brown. We will all be back at half-time and full-time, where we're hopefully talking about another City victory. But, of course, FG mentioned stats before. Newcastle unbeaten in their last 10 Premier League home games, winning 6 and drawing 4. They have made St James's Park a fortress, and that man has been a big part of it today. So enjoy the game, enjoy playing the formation game and working out where players are playing for each team today. We will be back with you in 45 minutes. We're going to hand over now to Alistair Mann and to Michael Brown. Come on, City.
Thank you, Natalie. Teams in the tunnel, ready to come out to the unique cauldron of noise that is St James's Park. Ederson and Joe Linton, international colleagues, embrace each other. And so too does Nick Pope with Ederson. Many connections between both sets of players. Bruno Guimaraes, the Newcastle captain, also with a friendly embrace for Ederson.